Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's NBA Sharp Betting Breakdown here on the Advantage Sports Betting Podcast. I am your host, Michael Fiddle. Today is Monday, January 6th. We have a 6-day win streak going. We are looking to make it a full week and come to the 7th with 7. I am joined today by professional poker player Drew Johnson. It is nice to have my buddy here on a Monday. He's normally a Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday kind of guy, but I said to him yesterday, you want to come on the show tomorrow? We've been doing good. I want your help. So we have him here. A little bit of strategy stuff that we're going to do too. We're going to go through today's NBA games. And then at the end, we're just going to have a strategy discussion about handling a hot streak versus handling a cold streak and the different factors that you go into it and how do you evaluate yourself and when should you push chips? When should you reserve chips? How should you change unit sizing? So let's apply some of those things because while I'm on a 6-day win streak, my friend's on a 4-day losing streak, but he was running super duper hot. I could see the lone face right there, but you were running super hot prior to this, so we're not going to let it shake the confidence, Drew. We are rolling into this card. How was your weekend, my friend?
Weekend was solid. Last week's kind of been holidays. The wife was off work for a full 2 weeks, which is crazy.
Nice.
So kind of got cut a bit short, so to speak, with me taking the concussion on the first day of holidays. So that was not fun. But we got over that over the course of about a week and leaned into the holidays for the second week is kind of how it went. But now we're back to work, getting everything done. Haven't been quite as focused the last few days, which might explain why I've been losing.
Yeah, maybe it's concussion correlated, they say.
Yeah. Something to that extent, I'd hope.
All right, let's talk about this slate, which begins with the Portland Trailblazers visiting the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons are a -6.5 point favorite. This line opened DraftKings at as low as 5, other spots 5.5 or 6. It has climbed up to a universal 6.5 with the Pistons taking steam. The over has taken another point of movement at 226.5 here. The open at 225.5. No plays from me on this game. I was a little bit skeptical of both directions of these teams. Detroit adjusting without Ivy. When you get to go 2, 3, 4 games in without one of your starters, you start to see the effects. And sometimes in the first game, it could be a little covered up by the role players having a higher degree of focus, a little extra motivation, wanting to put a little bit more on film. But then human nature, those motivation factors kind of wane by games 2, 3, 4. So you look for the effects of a starter to be missing to be more rampant. So I was a little hesitant to jump in on the Detroit Pistons -6.5. I have an eerie suspicion, Drew, that this game goes back the other way and ends up closing at 6. That is going to be my guess. So I'm going to say if you had an early 5.5 or 5 ticket, if you have a late 6.5, you're probably both in a good spot relative to the 6 being the most important key number in the NBA, the most common outcome the last 3 seasons. So if you forego any opinion that you have and you get closing line value relative to the 6, you done good. You done good, kid. And in the total going up to 226.5, I also did not want to play that market direction without Ivy missing a starter, him pushing the pace. You kind of also don't know what you get game to game with the Portland guards as well. So this one was a stay away for me. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I don't have anything at all other than the Pistons are on their 3rd game in 4 nights and their 4th game in 6. Blazers have only played 3 games. This will be their 3rd game since the new year. So I would imagine the Blazers a little rested. Obviously, they're more travel oriented. Did they play last night? Hang on a second. Let me just double check that. They did play last.
They did?
No, that's the 4th.
No, I don't believe so.
No, they didn't. There we go. Yeah, this is just a complete stay away. Don't bet, don't watch.
DBI, DWI. Don't bet it, don't watch it. Save your time. And look, right as we say that, the Detroit Pistons money line comes down a little bit. The Portland Trailblazers takes some money, so we're seeing some action come back in on Portland right here as we do the live show with the FanDuel odds screen showed on the board. Let's just pull up the injury report for that game quickly so that we can check in. Nothing really to discuss that isn't already known. Cade Cunningham was going to play. Dominating is probable, and Jeremy Grant remains out. So we understand, and there's no news that's going to break that is going to shake this market. Perhaps you could say when Ayton's officially ruled in, it moves to 6. I don't think so. I don't think that would be the reason it would move to 6, rather. Let's talk about the Phoenix Suns and the Philadelphia 76ers. A lot to talk about in this game, Drew. A lot to talk about in this game because we get the Chris Haynes video yesterday afternoon and in the evening where he says, first of all, he's been doing this new Chris B. Haynes. Got to follow him on Twitter. Got to probably put alerts on him given the news that he's breaking recently. We've always known that Chris is very, 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 very tapped in with players, very tapped in with the player side. He writes from players' perspective a lot. He does season-long diaries that players do. He's done it with Damian Lillard last season. I think he was actually doing it with Bradley Beal this season. So when we get this report, I'm going to question where this came from and who's the source. But the news breaks yesterday that Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic have been moved to the bench for the Phoenix Suns, and Mason Plumlee and rookie Ryan Dunn are going to be inserted into the starting lineup. So what does that mean for the betting landscape, and what does that mean for the NBA landscape? We need to discuss it. The first thing that I want to say, let's talk NBA landscape. Why would the Suns, let's throw up our windy fingers, why would the Suns bench Bradley Beal right now? It's a nice little alliteration on a Monday morning. He's knee-deep in trade talks. The Suns are apparently the most aggressive team in the Jimmy Butler trade talks, and what they need to have happen is to get Bradley Beal to waive his no-trade clause, because in reality, Miami does not want Bradley Beal, so you're going to need to bring in a third-party team, which likely means you're going to be sending Bradley Beal to a destination that he doesn't really want to go to. Maybe you can sell him on Miami and being more of a lead star there next to Hero and Bam Adebayo. Maybe you could sell him on, sticking it out with this Phoenix team, but he holds a no-trade clause. So when you bench his ass and you say he's now Bradley on the buns on the sidelines, you're saying we're going to make your situation a little bit unhappy and a little bit unpleasant. So maybe you're more willing to trade your no trade clause. And same goes for Yusuf Nurkic. You can't protect the rim. We want to trade your ass. We don't want you to get hurt. It is January. This is probably going to be more of a dump than a get value for Yusuf Nurkic. We'll probably just want a decent role player back who can play some weak side defense. And Nurk, see ya. We're moving you to the bench. We need some help defense. We need an ounce of rim protection in Mason Plumlee. So that's the NBA stuff. Is that the Phoenix Suns just said to the league, these two teams are on the trade block, and Bradley Beal is so on the trade block, we might even be maneuvering to get him to waive his no trade clause and playing games with him.
I also think from a basketball standpoint, given how the Suns' depth is really hurting them right now, that this makes sense from a winning standpoint as well. Because Nurkic and Beal are both offensive first players, as you just alluded to. They probably will do better against reserves, right? Meaning that now you've got a Bradley Beal, Yusuf Nurkic pick and roll on offense, at least coming off of the bench, that isn't probably that terrible when you consider they're going against the 6th, 7th, and 8th mans of each team.
Yeah, you slide him more into a Jordan Clarkson type of role, and you get more of a floating second unit and better scoring throughout the entire game. I actually completely agree, Drew, which brings us to the second point. Despite the announcement, the spread has not moved. So the market has said there is no impact to the Suns' gameplay by moving Beal and Nurkic to the bench, which I actually think teams should do and teams should value, because the gambling market is very fucking smart. And so I would more do this for quarterbacks in football, but like if your quarterback gets hurt and I mean, I guess you kind of know based on practices and stuff like that who's the better backup quarterback. But like, why not float a few different names into the gambling market of we might start this guy and then Thursday we might start this guy and see how the gambling market shakes and who's the power rating of these players? Because it makes total sense to read from the gambling market, okay, this doesn't have that drastic of an effect. So it's like not instantly fade city on the Suns right now. Although I did play Phoenix Suns -3. But the more important thing and the more important direction that I think is still playable is the under. It was moved from 225 down to 223.5. I still think the Suns are still going to be an under team when you put Plumlee and Ryan Dunn out there in the starting lineup and increase their minutes, and you go against the 76ers without Embiid. This is a spot right now as we go through the card that I still like the under on a 223.5. I will find the best available odds on the board right now. 224 if you're in Florida and can play it at the Hard Rock, but we already seeing offshores at low as 223. Some spots -115 to this under, -113 at Bet Rivers. So I would be willing to play a 223 to the under, still -110 here at FanDuel would be in par with the best lines aside from that weird Hard Rock line. This is just there's just going to be no spacing besides for Durant and Booker, and they don't shoot threes and they don't move fast on offense. So this is a clear under spot.
Yeah, I do like how this move will free up Durant on offense a bit more, though. I realize that teams will key in on him because they can help off of Plumlee, but Kevin can get that ball over the top to Plumlee for dunks, first of all. Secondly, the less people who want the ball in their hands on the floor with Kevin Durant, the better. Because Kevin Durant is still able to just get you a bucket basically at will. So now you don't have him having to protect the rim behind Nurkic, right?
Yeah, he was literally being asked to do so much defensively and gets no credit for it, but he's so good defensively too.
He really is. It's actually unbelievably.
He's like nearly for most of his career, Kevin Durant was nearly an all defense level player.
Yeah, and it's weird that people haven't taken notice of that over the years probably because of his build more than anything else. But like the way he's almost like mini Wemby is how I would describe it, right?
The alter shots. You can't get your normal release off when there's that kind of arm length in front of you.
Exactly. So if he can get freed up on offense, I think this really helps the Suns. One of the things I noticed, I watched a couple of Suns games over the last week or so, and the amount that he doesn't get the ball on offense on that team is absolutely disgusting to me because he's a walking bucket still. Like, just give him the ball. It's unbelievable sometimes how their point guards decide to like just turn away from him, even though like you could get him a pass and he'll just make something happen with 10 seconds on the shot. No, I'm going to turn the other way and try and run this pick and roll and maybe drive the rim and kick. No, just give the ball to Kevin Durant. Are we kidding?
They actually asked Mike Budenholzer about that in a press conference earlier this year. Like, do you have any problems? How much you're and the question was how much you're spamming the Kevin Durant isolations from the top of the key. And Budenholzer was like, we'll see. We'll look back at the tape. And he like gave a nonchalant answer of just like, nah, you could do that every fucking play as long as KD's out there to handle it. And then you see it in the record, like Suns have won like 1 or 2 games in the 12 that KD has missed this season. So they're absolute buns without him. And now they got Bradley's buns sitting on the bench for this game. I played -3 as a WHOP pick and the under 225 as a WHOP release were the first two that have come up on this card. I still think maybe both of them are playable. I love the way the 76ers are playing right now. Definitely think it's a strong under spot. Let's move on and talk about the Milwaukee Bucks taking on the Toronto Raptors. Drew, before we talk about this game, I need to show you one of the headlines that came from Toronto. Dick struggling to finish. Now, and this comes on the heels of me betting Grady Dick's over 13.5 points and him having 8 points in that game, despite a ton of shot attempts and a ton of attempts to get it over the 13.5. And Dick was struggling to finish. Thoughts on the vast amount of amazing Grady Dick jokes that come out of every single Toronto Raptors game?
Lucky to be alive for it. That's all I gotta say. Glad I'm a Raptors fan right now. It's great. I sent that one to my dad and he just busted out laughing. It was great.
All right, so for this Bucks Raptors game, the spread has pretty much remained around 7. Now it's at 7.5. It is really the total that is worth talking about. The over 229.5 was released as a WHOP bet. This is a clear over spot. I'll find the best number on the market. We see 231 minus 112 to the over at FanDuel right now. These two teams loved to play in transition. They love to run out and run up the court. So we're thinking this is going to be an incredibly high-paced game with a lot of fast break type of points and a lot of quick outs hitting up the floor. You're going to see 3 dribbles and then you're going to see a shot attempt. So for this game, this is more of a we are betting on pace, and we hope that the general efficiency of these teams on offense is able to get us over the hump on a medium to high total number. We are seeing 230.5 might be available somewhere, but 231 is probably the best number. 231.5 at Circa, 231.5 at Bookmaker, 231.5 at the offshores, at the exchanges. So for that 230.5 at Bet Rivers minus 112 to the over, that would absolutely be a spot that I probably still try and get down on it
now. Personally,
do you need the 40-second break to get down on it?
I don't need the full 40 seconds. We'll save that for when we're both making a bet.
All right, so this is just a game. Again, remember the transition that both of these teams play. The Milwaukee Bucks have been shooting a ton of threes recently, so we hope those start to land whenever they have AJ Green, Damian Lillard in the lineup. Their three-point rates go sky high. Chris Middleton is, for the most part, back playing most of these games. He's been a phenomenal distributor for the Milwaukee Bucks. So look for him to create a lot on offense. He's typically been a little bit of an underplayer because how slow he's been, but this season he's been getting the ball out of his hands quicker, probably because he has got less speed off the dribble with 2 ankle surgeries to be able to quick cut. So he's been dishing quickly and shooting quickly. He's made a nice adjustment to his game. And so for that reason, he's actually kind of been an overplayer this year. Andre Jackson, questionable. He's definitely an underplayer with his lack of shooting and his great defense. And then RJ Barrett, we would love RJ to play, but the way that this line has moved, I would assume this likely prices RJ Barrett in for the Raptors. It is really nice to have all of the Raptors guys for the most part back. Barnes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Kelly Olynyk, Bruce Brown, all of these guys seem to be back. So are the Raptors going to start covering spreads and being one of these good January teams and getting back to being a great ATS team? That'll show its head tonight. The way that the line has moved, I don't want to fade the market in a number that's gone from 7 to 7.5. I will skip it, but look for the Raptors to start getting good. And Drew, did you see the Scotty Barnes shot / no look pass / 3-pointer?
No, I didn't.
Check.
The Raptors are one of the few teams I've not paid attention to over the last week.
Check this out. It is amazing.
Haji face dog in that time on Cam Johnson. Obviously, you want to make sure prevent him catching.
Is that the 3? That's a 3. Everybody's looking around going, is that a 3? Is that a 3? Was that a pass? No, it was a 3, and it's good.
The alley-oop right to the 3. Hello! Scotty B's been struggling shooting the 3, so he'll take it any way he can get it. Raptors.
I'm pretty sure they should have called that bucket back. Buddy touches the rim, doesn't he?
Ooh.
As
we
it
won't
goes
tell
in.
anybody.
It looked like he grabbed the rim.
It definitely counted.
Well, congrats to Scotty Barnes for finally hitting a 3-pointer.
It was also no look too.
No,
he
I know.
turns his head a little bit as he throws it.
That's why it went in.
All right, let's talk about the Indiana Pacers taking on the Brooklyn Nets. This is in Brooklyn. We're Brooklyn Net. Brooklyn, man, 10-point underdogs now, and a line that started at 7.5. So clear movement. There was some injury news that popped for this game. We got some key guys that were put on the injury report. D'Angelo Russell and Ben Simmons are questionable. Cam Johnson is, I think, the real needle mover, and Cam Thomas are both out. I don't really. Do you think D'Lo and Ben Simmons? Let me ask you this, Drew. Does D'Angelo Russell affect the Nets spread yet at all?
I think he does. The amount of offense he generates for them right now without Cam Thomas, I think, is important. I don't
What
know
about
how
Ben
much it
Simmons?
moves. Ben, I don't think Ben does. I think he's just so statistically like not doing much, right? I understand that he's half decent on defense, and if anything, maybe he moves a total down a point or two because he's not a scorer, because he plays half decent defense still, even after all the back surgeries, etc. But I wouldn't really say that he influences a spread.
They definitely both impact totals, and I would question whether or not they impact spreads at all. I'd probably agree with your assessment. Maybe D'Lo half a point, maybe Ben Simmons half a point. Definitely the collective. Like if they're both out, I would say there's reason for the spread to move half a point or a full point in just a cluster injury sense. And then like who's doing the ball handling for this team? Is it Keon at like who's doing Keon Johnson? Not Keon Ellis, he's on the Kings. Is it Keon Johnson doing like a vast majority of the ball handling? So I played the Indiana Pacers money line at minus 350. I didn't even play it that big. It was one of those spots where I was like, Indiana, long road favorite. I saw it at 7.5, moving to 8.5. I was like, do I want to play a 7.5 minus 115 if I think it's going to move to 8.5 as a road favorite, or I just want to play the correlated money line? I played the correlated money line. I think it still looks great. I love this spot for the Indiana Pacers. I think the price is probably where it should be now. It's probably pretty dangerous to play into. In terms of the total, when it was opened, it was 224.5. And then we got the news about the injuries and it dropped down to 222. And now it has climbed back up to 223. So I think this is like in where it should be, right? Like we're in its market consensus starting to start range, and I wouldn't really be looking to play probably any of these games if you haven't already. That probably brings us nearly halfway through the slate, where I can remind you guys that so far on the card is Indiana Pacers, the over, the Spurs, and the under. Every single one of those are ahead of the market. If you want to join the WHOP picks, that link is in my bio on Twitter. That is in the show links on the YouTube description and on the podcast description of this video. And I've been on an absolute heater. You can get all of these picks in a locked text chat the night before when I release them. You can get on the closing line value with us and start riding some of these good tickets. It is $100 a month. I give $50 back in the first month simply for leaving a review on the store page. And if I ever have a losing month, then I don't charge and I make the next month completely free. So I try and make it as risk-free and very trust myself, trust the process. You also get access to a community chat with Drew, with Ian, with a bunch of other smart people where we're discussing these lines. It has definitely become a nice little community, and it has been one hell of a week as we go for the 7th straight winning day. Let's talk about the Orlando Magic at the New York Knicks. Woo! A spread that has climbed from 10.5 to 12. A total that has dipped from 213 down to 210. So, Drew, I will ask you, because you pointed this out in our newsletter last week when you wrote it. Spreads that are like long, like big spreads, right? We'll say a double-digit spread, and we say a low total. When the total goes low and the spread is this high, you're actually more correlated to go over this mark because your blowout potential is higher, and the amount of scoring power on one side expected is so vast. So someone actually commented on Twitter yesterday. I should pull up their handle because it was a great stat that they plugged, and they put this into statistical context. And they said games priced under 215, right? So this game is 210.
Yep.
Spreads at double digits are 65% to the over this year.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
There is a correlation between a expected blowout and going over a low number, a number at 215 or below. I loved this stat. I loved contextualizing this, what we're seeing and what actually makes sense, because it's not just like a trend. That's kind of a trend statistic, but it has meaning to it. It has reliability to it. It almost has system approach to it, where you could start to back test that and push that forward and see how real that is, because that makes a lot of logical sense. However, in this game, I'm going to throw it to you and ask you, is it the Knicks' vast scoring power, or is it the Magic's lack of scoring power, right? And I guess that's kind of the question going into all of these spots, and maybe where you throw out your opinion and play the numbers. And anytime we're going to have a low total and a high spread, it's going to be one team that you might really struggle to score. So how do you see this game in a line that's gone from 213 down to 210? Is there actually some value now in playing the over 210 the other direction?
Yeah, I think there is. There's also some 209.5s available, I think, at ESPN Bet, at least from what I'm seeing on the ESPN page itself, because I'm just looking at this game. And both teams have played quite a lot recently. Knicks will be on their third game in 4 nights, fourth game in 6, and Magic will be on their third game in 4 nights. That always leans over, right? So that's another reason to kind of play into this. The other thing is the Magic just finally, like, after 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks of them just being like, we don't care that our star players are out, they finally lost a game to, of course, the lowly Utah Jazz. My Raptors can't beat them, no, but the Jazz can.
Jalen Suggs also doubtful, so you also have like defensive anchor on the perimeter for the Magic also out. So maybe the Knicks can just torch, and maybe the Knicks on defense aren't really, that putting that much effort, because they know how much they can torch on offense.
Especially because they're also, like I said, they've been busy, and they might, like, who do they play next? Let me just have a quick look at the schedule here. Try and find it as quickly as I can. So they have Toronto on Wednesday and then OKC on Friday. I feel like both of these games are just like, let's get these wins. Let's get the W's. Let's make sure we score our points, run our offense well, save our energy for that OKC game coming on Friday, which will be a marquee one, right?
209 at Caesars. Yes, there's plenty of amazing games coming. So I think looking at the schedule that's coming for some of these teams is very important. Like that Knicks Thunder one that's coming is one that I want to bet the Knicks probably at the open, because Thunder running so hot, and it's a little bit of revenge for Knicks, who had a late collapse in that game. Over minus 105 at Caesars, 209 at Caesars. So whatever. That's a great price.
That's a nice line.
Play it small because you're going opposite the market. Something we'll talk about when we do hot and cold streaks in a few games after we get through this slate and do some strategy. I will say, last question on this game, Drew. Let me throw Ian's injury report back up for a second, because look at this thing. Doubtful. Paolo, Jalen Suggs out, Franz, and obviously we know Mo, Gary Harris too, who's been starting for some of the games as well. Like, the whole fucking Magic team is out, and we're in New York playing in the Garden. Like, is this the point where you just lay some juice on the money line and just say, like, all right, sometimes you have to make your 3-foot putts. And here I am making my 3-foot putt on a New York Knicks minus 650. I'm betting a unit and I'm bringing home a baby return, but that's 0.15. So that's the big loss of another, middle opportunity, or the 1.1 to win one, and it covers the one, the tax on another bet. Is this one where you just pay the 650 and bring home a small return? How in the world do the Magic win?
I don't think it's possible, but like, I've said that about them 4 times in the past 2 weeks, and they've won.
So well coached.
I know. It's really true.
And they've played this Knicks teams a bunch of times this season. This might be the 4th time they've already playing them, so it's like the familiarity with the opponent. I'll have to think about it, but I gotta be saying I'm definitely considering some Knicks money line. This is Make your 2-foot putts. All right, let's talk about the Clippers and the Timberwolves. A line now that is at 2. Clippers opened at +4. So some Clippers steam coming in. Why? Because Kawhi Leonard is back. Ian, can you send me the link to the, did we do the airball clip last week, Drew?
Yes, we did. We did.
Oh, we did it? Okay, then we won't do it again. I love that clip. I've been wondering if Kawhi has airballed in practice at all. He's definitely impacting the spread immediately upon his return. I'd expect nothing less. Kawhi Leonard returns like Kevin Durant, where once he's back, he's instantly a force, and he's so fucking good. So we're seeing him 2 points in the spread impact this line. That's probably some Kawhi stuff and a little bit of increased minutes and knowing that he's going to play. And a little bit of this Timberwolves team is in absolute Timberwolves turmoil. And they can't get out of their own way. And it is just Rudy's stats are down. Naz Reid's stats are down. Ant's stats are a bit all over the place. Julius Randle, DiVincenzo's up and down. Dillingham is in and out of the lineup. Conley's but like trying to hold the boat steady. But this Timberwolves team is dealing with some shit. So it's like continuing to fade Timberwolves. It's continuing to buy on the Kawhi stuff. I generally don't overly love to play into once it's already moved injury-related stuff, like Kawhi back recently. It's his second game back. The line's moving 2 points because of the injury news. So, yes, I want to play Clippers because Kawhi's back. It's not really an angle that I look to. If I can get ahead of the news, then I love it. People are like, oh, injury-related CLV is not that great, and sometimes it works against you. Not true. Not true. That is an emotional thing where you're like, how the fuck did I lose that one? And you're extrapolating those emotional feelings to a bigger sample size. So if you bet on Knicks and you beat the line today before the Suggs news came and obviously all the stuff that they're dealing with on the Magic side, and the Magic do end up winning, you're like, how the fuck did I lose that Knicks position? Injury-related CLV sucks. No, that is false. You just feel it more because it's like, how the hell did I lose that? Because it looms louder in your mind. So if you can beat the news, then you do it. If I don't like paying late into the news. That's kind of my general consensus for this game. Do you have any opinions on Clippers Timberwolves?
Well, just the thing that you just said was is a thing in the stock trading world. You buy on rumor and sell on news.
Buy on rumor, sell on news. That's how you make the big bucks.
Yeah. So,
all right. Let's move on. The total in that game's been at 214 time. So very little movement in the total there. I think it dipped down a bit, then it dipped back up. I think it got as low as 212. Now it's back up to 214 and a half. Kawhi, despite let me just say this for the people who are listening. Kawhi Leonard, Drew, let me ask you first. Over or under player? Because I have the answer, because we know the answer, because we can go to previous games and we can understand how the market shifts and we could bring all this information in. We can even go to things like the D'Lo and the Ben Simmons stuff. And we know previously when Simmons has been ruled out, and we keep a log of that data. So we know what these players are worth. We let the market speak to us. We hold that information. We reference it and go back in time and into our little time portal of our little Google document and say, oh, he was worth half a point against this team. That was at home. That was coming off a back-to-back. Let's reevaluate it for this spot. What do you think Kawhi Leonard does to an NBA total, Drew?
I bet you it drops 1.5 points.
It goes up 1.5 points.
Oh, really?
Despite Kawhi Leonard being a phenomenal defender, he's that much better on offense. And I would say historically, he was probably an even to an under player. At this point in his career, the way his defense has slipped a little bit, he's more of an overplayer. So I actually think that's I like that you said under, because that's what I think a lot of people would naturally think. But Kawhi Leonard is actually an overplayer. Joel Embiid, despite scoring 30 fucking points a game and a point for him.
Well, we lost him. The only thing I was going to say there was if... Oh, no.
Sorry. I do that.
All good, my friend.
Hold on. All right. So Joel Embiid, despite him being on the court and playing and scoring 30 points in 30 minutes, he's an under player because pace, and we've talked about that. Fiddle, we lost you. Peasy, I am back and more handsome than ever. Chad says that's funny. No, it's not, because I'm scrambling over here. All right, let's talk about the next game, which is the Mavericks versus the Grizzlies in Memphis. The news that looms large for this game is what's the new... Oh, Fiddle, the mic's weird. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Can I just ask?
Yo, I appreciate when people let me know, because sometimes the mic pops... it goes to like a different setting. Sometimes when I show a video, it switches back. So if you ever hear the mic turn off, it's because it's then picking up from my computer microphone. So let me know in the chat. Thank you, Chad. That was very helpful. This is looking out for the podcast. He's looking out for the listeners.
Thanks,
Those
Chad.
Listeners are already 2 steps behind you, Chad, because you're here. All right.
Chad being a real Chad out here.
Exactly. The news that looms large for this Mavericks and Grizzlies game is the Desmond Bane injury news. Shout out D-Rex. It is one of the best nicknames in all of the NBA. It's probably a little bit of an insult to him because Desmond Bane has those big body and these tiny little arms. So we call him D-Rex out there. He is a stone cold killer himself too. But Desmond Bane being doubtful, then he was listed as questionable, so it's uncertain if he's doubtful or questionable. If Desmond Bane is in, this total is going to pop up to 233.5. If Desmond Bane is out, this total is going to drop to 230.5. So I'm on the under at 233.5. If Desmond Bane goes in, this Memphis becomes minus 5.5. If not, it maybe goes to 4. But we know Kyrie is out. We know Luka is out. We know Ja Morant is out. So this is betting under and don't watch it. That's how I would do it. You're going to ask Jaren Jackson Jr. to do his thing where he takes the ball at the top of the key. He gets really low to the ground and he tries to lower that shoulder and get to the paint. You're going to see a lot of Zach Edey centered offense. You're going to see a lot of Spencer Dinwiddie running the show for the Mavericks. It is probably going to be a pretty ugly game. I would think Memphis takes it because I love the Memphis role players. I love the Memphis coaching. I love Memphis at home with home court. However, without Bane, I'm not betting it, and I absolutely love the under in this spot. Any thoughts for this one, Drew?
No, but I'm going to trail the under for half a unit because I 100% agree. I don't see how these teams are going to run and score.
I think it should be 229
for this.
Yeah. I think it should be 229.5 without Bane. I don't think it'll get that low, but I think that's what it should be. Circa 231 just moved from 232.5 to 231 30 minutes ago. So grab a 232 right now. Under minus 108 at FanDuel, minus 108 at DraftKings. Those are the best available lines. MGM 231.5. Caesars 232. Bet365 232. Bookmaker 231.5. Offshores 232 or lower. Bet Rivers 232 minus 109 to the under. So FanDuel, DraftKings, Bet Rivers with a low VIG 232, which would probably be worth playing. Seeing the movement live on the board right now, it had that faded color for me where it's like, man, this line moved in the last 30 minutes.
Yep, I just grabbed it half a unit personally.
Bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. All right. I got in all this action, Drew. We didn't need to take our 40-second break and do a get down on it type of betting motion. All right, let's talk about the Spurs and the Bulls. This was one where we might have had to do that, but I bet it right before the show started, like literally 3 minutes before we went live today. I bet the under 236.5 right here. It is minus 112 at FanDuel. Let me say the best available odds, minus 109 at Bet Rivers. But minus 110 at Caesars and Bet MGM, Bet 365, and then minus 112 FanDuel and DraftKings. I would think they are all playable. And here is the way that I'm going to talk about this game, Drew. And it starts with the defensive anchor and the best player in the league on the defensive end, Victor Wembanyama. And the way that he alters shots, the way that we just spoke about it for Kevin Durant, it's a sight to behold. We just watched against the Denver Nuggets this weekend, back-to-back games between Wemby and Jokic. By the way, some of the best basketball like we will get this year. Jokic, after night one in the postgame, calls Wemby one of a kind and someone who will be remembered forever. And then the next game, it goes to overtime where Wemby has a 20-20 game, but Jokic pulls out the dub. So they split wins on each other's home courts. They have an overtime game. The stats were just nuclear. Jokic versus Wemby, it will be something to remember, a la Wemby versus Chet being one of those rivalry matchups.
Yep.
This might be just one of the best basketball moments we see in a long time. It might be a la the Bill Russell versus Will Chamberlain type of days that we're finally seeing restored in the Western Conference right now between the Spurs and the Nuggets. But the under 236.5 was a line that I was looking at the open. FanDuel actually opened it at 235.5 and moved up because every other book opened it at 236.5. So they caught up to the rest of the market. But I want to play the under because Wemby just impacts so many shots. And we know that the Spurs on offense play with slower pace and limit possession. So this is a game versus of the Bulls with their league leading pace and wanting to push against a Spurs team with a defensive anchor and then who wants to slow it down. So I'm going to lean towards the defensive anchor here and go, okay, I know, fun fact, I can allow 59 points every quarter. So you're looking at when you're watching this game, this will be a fun one to watch too because it will be high pace. There will be some highlights. You got the Wemby show out there. 30 points every 6 minutes, 5 points every minute. Every minute that goes by with less than 5 points is a win for you. Every minute that goes by with 5 or more, slight loss for you. So that's how you watch this game. It should be a fun one. It should be one where you can keep up with it minute to minute. 59 points a quarter and you're golden. 60 points a quarter and you're toast. Bulls, Spurs, under. The way that you have been moving your eyes in this segment, I think you're tailing it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, can't wait to watch more Wemby. Like, I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless with the guy lately.
I texted. Wait, let me pull up the text that I sent to my dad and brother because they're not. They love basketball, but they're not like me,
Yeah.
right? So I sent this statistic. Did you see the statistic of Victor Wembanyama's first 100 games?
No, I haven't seen that.
This might be one of the best stats of all fucking time.
Like, this is gonna be nuts.
This is one to remember. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Victor Wembanyama is playing in his 100th game tonight. In his first 100 career games, he has more ... points than LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Carmelo Anthony. He has more rebounds than Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, and Patrick Ewing. He has more blocks than Shaquille O'Neal, Dikembe Mutombo, or Hakeem Olajuwon. And here's the kicker. He also has more threes than Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Trae Young. In his first 100 games, more points than LeBron, more rebounds than Ewing, Embiid, AD, more blocks than Shaq, Mutombo, Olajuwon, more threes than Curry. That's one to remember forever.
Speechless.
So I sent that to my brother and my dad. And I said, you guys need to be doing everything you can to watch this guy.
Watch him. He's incredible. Every single night I watch him, he does something I've never seen before. Every single night.
That glare on my face. Sheesh. It's like highlighting the pimple on top of my head. For the live stream, I don't care about it, but your boy had a first date this weekend, and I wake up that morning with a little pimple on my forehead, like, oh no.
Like clockwork, right?
Oh no, obviously. First date went well though, go me. Second date coming.
Nice.
All right. Last game to talk about is the Miami Heat versus the Sacktown Kings. Kings, the good vibes team right now on a nice winning streak. Killing it under Doug Christie right now. However, a lot of their opponents have been missing their best players. So I know they played Grizzlies without Ja, Mavs without Luka, Sixers without Embiid. I believe they beat the Warriors yesterday. Did they beat? I don't know. Kings have been playing very well. No, who'd they beat yesterday? Hold on. Live Googling on the podcast.
Golden State.
Yeah, they beat the Warriors by 30 yesterday. So it's Warriors, Grizzlies, Kings, Mavericks. Go me. 4 in a row. All right. I do want to play one clip from yesterday's Kings and Warriors game, Drew. Draymond 2 games ago got a technical foul for yelling boom, right? So what do you think Draymond does the next game? I'll play it right now. He cracks me up.
Yeah.
All right. For this game, the line opened Kings -3. It dipped down to 2.5. It has come back to 3. Miami obviously dealing with a lot of turmoil on their side with the Jimmy Butler stuff. We talked about that in detail last week. The one team that I didn't mention that I think should have been mentioned for Miami, for Jimmy Butler, is Denver Nuggets to try and get involved somehow. However, we'll save that conversation for another time. I just felt bad that I kept Denver out of the top 5 teams that might be interested in Jimmy Butler, because I do think they're going to make the phone call. All right, Miami Heat. I said it last week. I'll say it again. I don't love fading the team where there's so much drama. Like, there's so much loud. It feels priced in. It feels like you're starting to attack the public side. Grab the team at home with the big win streak against a team that seems like it's spiraling out of control and it's only a 3-point. That's like, you say you're trap line. I don't believe that trap lines exist. I believe that well-priced lines exist. And if anything was a trap line and actually not well-priced, that the sharps would just pound it the other way and bring it to a point where it was the right price, right? So I don't believe wrong prices exist. I don't believe that's true for win totals. I don't believe that's true that overs are artificially inflated, because then big money, early money would come in on unders and put that number where it should be. Right. Yep. So books, I don't believe books are doing that to expose themselves. And you can listen to interviews from odds makers, from bookmakers, and none of them have ever said that they do things like that. So I push that stuff to the side. I think 3 or 2.5, it was even the right line for this game. And I don't want to play into it at all. Drew, any thoughts, Kings Heat?
Nope. I want to stay away, as far away from this Miami Heat team as possible right now. They clearly had a letdown game, obviously, last one. And I just think this team is too well coached, too well run for them to be down for long. I know the Kings are hot, I know, but like 2 weeks ago, this would have been what, Miami -1.5?
Sure. Yeah, because the Kings were in, wait, that's the perfect example, because the Kings were in fucking turmoil. And look what happened. Oh, the Kings just rattle off four straight. Oh, how are the faders feeling right now, of people that have been wanting to fade the Kings because the De'Aaron Fox noise was loud? They score 15 points in a row to come from behind and beat the Sixers with 3 minutes left, hitting the middle for ya boy.
They beat Golden State by 30.
Taylor says trap lines goes into the bucket with lock and lean for me. Perfect. Yeah. I would agree with that. I think that's very well said. I feel like trap line is a way for a lot of content people to be able to not understand why the line is there. You'll never hear me saying trap line. You'll hear me saying this is probably priced as what public people would think is a trap line, but in reality, I think it's exactly where it should be. All right. That does it for today's card. We are going to have a strategy discussion going over hot streaks versus cold streaks and how to handle those things. The one thing I want to do is throw up the 6 WHOP bets quickly and review them. The Philadelphia 76ers -3 was a 3/4 of a unit play. It is now a 3.5 and a little bit of juice to that side as well. The under 225 was an immediate play upon hearing the news that Beal and Nurkic were not starting. I would still play that under at the best possible number you can find. If that's 223.5, I would go for it, but maybe you play it a little bit smaller. Indiana Pacers money line -350 was I'm actually only risking that 0.875 to win a quarter of a unit. So it's a super small bet for me. It was a road favorite on a big number, but I really like the spot. And yet it's continuing to climb. So I probably should have betted harder. The Milwaukee Toronto over 229.5 at 231 and juice to the over, which we kind of also like with 232s hanging on the market right now. Dallas Memphis under 233.5, also at 232 right now. And that bet was placed 5 minutes before the show. San Antonio, Chicago under 236.5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bets that are ahead of the market and one that is flat because it was taken 6 minutes ago, but I assume it will close ahead. That is the benefit of being in the WHOP chat that you would have gotten these last night. Ian also threw up a picture of Desmond Bane's tiny arms. Hilarious.
I mean, tiny in length. The man is...
I have 2 thoughts on that. First of all, I did look up Desmond Bane's wingspan yesterday, and if that doesn't work, I'll
slightly. This looks doctored to me.
No, it's real.
That's real?
So I looked up his wingspan yesterday, and it's exactly the same as his height. So the reason why I think it looks weird on an NBA court is because he's so jacked, which you don't really see with NBA players, especially shooters like him, right? You get more fluidity through the shoulders and arms with the movement, like Kevin Durant's lankiness provides for fluidity. Same with Wembanyama. So Desmond Bane to be as fluid while being so stocky is just an abnormal scene. Also, to have your wingspan match your height is abnormal because most NBA players' hands go to their knees, right? Because they got these massive wingspans that help, like Donovan Mitchell, 6'4" with a 6'10" wingspan, right?
Yeah, Scotty Barnes comes to mind, 6'8", 7'2" wingspan. Exactly.
So for Desmond Bane, I think it's just it's not actually that small, but in comparison to the NBA, it is a very funny nickname and a sight to behold. All right, Drew. Let's talk. The second thing I want to mention with that is anytime we show something funny, right? Most of the time, Ian's in the background with his camera off. But when we show, I don't know if you've noticed this, Drew.
I have.
But when we show something funny, he turns on his camera in the back and starts laughing at the camera to let us know that he's laughing. Like most of the time, Ian's thing is like, hold on, this. And then I see him start cracking up when something happens. So funny. I know other viewers must be laughing at some of these points if Ian's going the distance to turn on his camera to show us he's laughing. All right, let's talk about handling a hot streak versus handling a cold streak. And I want to start that off with talking a little Mike Evans yesterday, the football player and the wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just had his 9th consecutive 1,000-yard season. And was asked how he was going to celebrate that yesterday. He reaches that mark. He gets a massive contract incentive, Drew.
$3 million.
And this is what Mike Evans had to say after the game.
How do you celebrate this milestone tonight?
I might go to the casino with my family. I might go just, hang out, watch some games, and play a little blackjack.
Is it any more special that...
No, they can't get where I'm going.
Drew, Mike Evans is trying to make his money work for him like we do with ours. When we have a hot streak or when we have a cold streak, we're going to evaluate those things. But coming off a hot streak, I go back to the casino. I say, how do I put this money back to use? Mike Evans is doing that night one. He knows he's got the bag. He's secured the $3 million. He's going to the casino. He's going to try and build on that $3 million instantly. So let's talk about handling a hot streak versus handling a cold streak. I'm coming into this with a 6-day win streak. You're coming into this with a 4-day losing streak. We could blame that on the concussion. We also know you were nuclearly hot prior to that. So we're gonna like balance the two right here, right?
Yeah.
Let's start with handling a hot streak. This is what I'm thinking, and I want to throw it to you for the poker stuff, but I want to add some sports betting context here first. The first thing that I'm going to do when I have a hot streak, and I think it's true for cold streak too, the first step to do and to reflect on what's been happening and to evaluate process is to not look at let me pull up the record, not look at the fact that I'm plus 10.4 units over the last 6 days, not to look at the fact that I'm hitting 66% of my bets right now. That's less important and less indicative of what could happen and why this has been happening. So those are your primary metrics. What is your net take-home rate, right? Your secondary metrics in sports gambling are what is your ROI? What is your win rate compared to average odds? What is your closing line value rate?
Yeah.
That would be the one that I prioritize the most. If you're listening to this podcast and you're an hour into the show, you know that I prioritize closing line value rate the most. If you are consistently beating the closing line at a very, very high clip, which right now in the month of January, mine's been nearly 100%. Like there's been some flat spots, there's been some playbacks on other big positions. For example, I played Clippers -3.5, and then I played it back with Hawks +6.5. Then I went on that first date, and the line would close at 7.5, right? So I was a little bit behind on one, but the net position was way tilted towards the Clippers, so that was still a plus CLV position with a little playback. Okay. So my closing line value rate right now is damn near 100% over the last 6 days. It has been amazing. I am reading the board correctly. I am picking off the right numbers. I am in a zone where the market is efficient too. We've spoken about December and January become efficient market months as well. There have been things that have gone my way, like the Celtics and Thunder under yesterday. It closed at the number, so it closed flat at 223.5 to the number that I bet. It looked like it was an overspot, and then what dead cold as the Celtics scored 27 points or whatever in the entire second half. So there's been moments of luck too. So I'm starting to say, why have I been winning all these things? A lot of them have just been great numbers, great positions, reading the board correctly, and having the market efficiency come through. So when I see that and I reflect back on my hot streak and say, there's justified reason that I've been hot, right? And I'm bumping around my apartment. This is why I'm hot, Mims. And I'm feeling fucking fresh as can be. I'm like, all right, let me get back to the board. Let me continue to attack. Let me continue to get this churning of the bankroll. I want to put this money back to work. There was one day 2 nights ago where I won the Lakers Hawks under. And I think I won 3/4 of a unit, and I like popped back up with energy. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to study the prop market. I put in 3 props for all quarter units. So I was back in for another 3/4 of a unit and swept the board with those props the next day. I would have not bet those props if I didn't come back to the board with energy and feeling good because I just won. So I immediately put that capital back to work and had it build on itself. And all of those props closed ahead of the market too. So this has all been really good. So I'm reflecting on my hot streak going, I want to push chips right now. I want to use power. I'm okay putting a unit on a Knicks -650 right now because I think it's a good bet. I think I'm going to bring home a small return. I have the capital to do it. I have some, liquidity in my bankrolls. Let me just push right now. How do you handle that in poker if you're starting to run good? Do you continue to push some chips a little bit? Is it the way that you're seeing the board? Is it the way that you're reading your opponents? How can we kind of formulate into how you handle a hot streak as a professional gambler?
Typically, I try to lean into the top end of my buy-in range with poker. So if I'm running cold, I will often drop stakes if I'm playing cash tables. So like if I'm playing $200 cash tables, I'll sometimes drop to 1 or even $50 cash tables. Obviously, I'm playing like 6 to 8 tables at a time. So there's always a lot of money in play, but I definitely want to lower the variance a bit when I'm losing, and I want to lean into the hot streak and increase the variance a bit, right? Because if you're hot and you can get that one, especially in poker, right? Because my bread and butter's always been poker tournaments, like massive multi-table tournaments. So winning one of those can make a year, right? Like some of those are, I don't know. I want to say the biggest top prize pool I've played in recently was 50K for first. So like that would make my year, literally.
Yeah. Okay, so let's use that to talk bankroll management in these positions. the way that I do it from a sports betting perspective, and this has been something that's been thrown out in the WHOP, something that I know you and Ian have talked about behind the scenes, and we've all been working together this season. There's a lot of people saying, wow, things have been going good. I'm upping my unit size, right?
Yep.
So it makes me feel good to hear that. It makes me happy that people have been successful, that they feel like now's the time that they could up their unit size, that they're running good. I think Ian said he's up. Ian, can you comment how many times you've upped your unit size?
He said 4.
Throwing it up 4 times in the back right now.
Since the NBA season started, I believe.
Right. So there's been 4 times where he's hit the interval checkpoint where it's worth upping his unit size. The way that I do it, because I want to caution between, I think a lot of people who might listen to betting content and then try and get really into it might have a much lower unit size. And then once they're like, okay, I'm going to go for this, like pop it up like 2x, 3x immediately.
Yeah,
I was only betting $25 a game. I'm going to start betting $100 a game because I feel like I know what I'm doing. I know you might know what you're doing. I know you still might have a sweep of closing line value positions. That is still not proper bankroll management strategy unless you understand that the back end of your bankroll, if you're betting $100, is now a $10,000 bankroll, and you're willing to continue to deposit to match that, and you're not going to be scared off by losing, okay, a good night for you is plus $60 previously, and now you're losing 500 in a slate because it just went the wrong way and shit happened and whatever. Don't do that, because even with good EV tickets, you still might have a 45% chance to lose if you've netted a 55% chance ticket, or you might have a nice 57% implied ticket if you beat a line by 2.5 points, and now you're looking at it like still a 43% chance this ticket loses, right? And you stack a few of those up. It's not insane to think 4 in a row might happen where the 43% side hits. So you can't ever up your unit size and be quickly overexposed. So for bankroll management purposes, the way that I do it is I have my bankroll, which is a collective of every single balance in every single sportsbook. It is not a DraftKings bankroll and a FanDuel bankroll. It is a Mike bankroll, right? So I tally all of those up. You distribute the bankroll where you think your main bets are, where you get down the most action, where you need the most liquidity. Understand a lot of those other things that goes into those, like which markets you bet into and which books you bet into the most. I have found myself betting a lot more at Bet365 this year because they have -110 holds or -110 odds on both sides of player props. So they have standard holds. You look at Caesars and they're -133 on one side and -103 on the other. And you're like, wow, there's an extra 16 cents of VIG playing props at Caesars versus Bet365. I'm going to prioritize Bet365 and put a little bit more of my bankroll there so I can bet into more of those markets.
Yeah.
When you start winning, when I do this, my unit is 1.2% of my bankroll. You could have that be between 1 and 2%. That's what a unit is. For people who say otherwise, put that in the bin of lean, lock, trap line or whatever. If someone tells you their unit is 4 or 5%, they don't understand gambling. If someone tells you their unit is less than 1%, they don't understand gambling. Unit is a general term to describe between 1 and 2%. Like that's the rule of thumb and principle of the community, and that's how you apply it to your bankroll and then scale it up. Obviously, if you make a specific assumption, you could understand it. It's just terminology jargon. It's not that important, but I'd say it's a little bit of a red flag. So for those reasons, what I do is a 1.2% unit, and when I win 5 units, when I've netted a 5-unit gain, that is a increase of 6% of my bankroll, because 5 units times 1.2% is a 6% increase in my bankroll. So fuck checking in at the end of the month and doing let's see if I update in February. February 1st is an arbitrary date. It means nothing to your bankroll. Yeah. Fuck checking in 2 weeks. Do it based on how much, scale up with your winnings properly. So if you win 6%, then go back to your unit, recalculate your average bankroll, and recalculate what your new 1.2%. So always keep your exposure a 1.5% unit size, right, of your total bankroll. And if you're increasing your unit size right now, you better start first by understanding you've just increased your bankroll. The first thing you've done when you've increased your unit size is you've increased your bankroll. And that happens when you're winning. And it doesn't happen with the concept of wanting to get smarter or do more of this or whatever. That is bankroll investment first. Then you scale up slowly while you're winning and doing it properly. So if you want to jack up your bankroll, fine, as long as you understand that and you're going to be cool with that. And if you have a few losing days to start and you will switch this into cold streak, you know how to handle that. So for handling a hot streak, I'm looking to continuously push in chips. I'm looking to say, in the same way Drew might say, I'm reading my opponents well, I'm sitting at the same table, I'm reading these teams well. The market is reading these teams well. It's the same faces, it's the same names that we're betting into. So it's like, okay, we have an edge on these players right now, right? So we are going to continue to push chips in that. You never reach the point of overexposure in a particular game or a particular slate or a particular spot. But if you want to just throw chips at market positions that you think are going to close ahead of the line, then absolutely go for it. Chad says, do you guys use Kelly criterion at all for bankroll management? I do in some instances on lines that I absolutely love that I think are worth absolutely hammering. Then I will throw them into Kelly criterion. For people who don't understand this, Kelly criterion is a formula that extrapolates your expected value on a ticket correlated to how much of your bankroll you should expose on that line. So you could actually get a percentage of your of how much of your bankroll you should put on this based on what your expected EV is. It's always a little bit tricky to actually know what your expected EV is, and therefore it's always a little tricky to know what true Kelly is. So for those reasons, that also gets convoluted. If you're very into this stuff, go read about Kelly criterion. That's yeah. Thoughts on scaling percent risk based on performance of a cap or long to, i.e. 1x for Steven. I don't understand the question totally. I think you're asking if you're doing different units based on who you're tailing. Is that what the question is?
So what he's saying is over a long-term sample size, enough that's statistically significant, one capper has returned 7.5% and the other capper has returned 20%.
Okay.
Would you increase your bet size for if you were tailing the 20% capper versus the 7.5%?
I think the question is if the person was winning 7.5 ROI but literally just doubled it, would they be winning 20% plus? It's a confusing.
No, that's
question.
that's not the case. I think I have.
Do you know how to answer this one?
Yeah. So first of all, yes and no is my answer. I would scale up, but I wouldn't scale up 2x. I would probably, well, maybe considering the 20%, because from a pure math perspective, it does make more sense to bet twice as much on a percentage that's more than twice as much as the other guys, right? But past results don't, like, while they can provide you a reference point, they don't necessarily equal future results, right? So I'm still hesitant to do stuff like that. I do increase my personal risk based on stuff like that, though. Like if I see an edge or an EV play that I think is 20% versus a 5% EV play, I will increase my unit size. So technically speaking, if you've seen someone long-term produce 20%, that is sort of an EV indicator. And my answer would be yes, you probably should risk a little more, but you also want to ensure that you're not going beyond your bankroll structure.
I appreciate you for understanding that question. Also, Bronny has just started. Come here. Hey,
can we get a live shot of Bronny?
Live appearance. Bam.
Hi, Bronny.
Hey, girl. All right, I appreciate you for understanding that question.
I think that's what he asked. If he can confirm in the chat.
I also know Steven is in the WHOP. So, Steven, you could also tag Drew in the WHOP and you guys can have this conversation as well. Taylor says, not only are you guys killing it on the gambling side, but you have these little combos that are huge, little huge combos. Always room to learn in this space. Yes, I'm still learning myself. That is, I am evolving and still learning myself. That I am not the end all be all. I am learning and I am redistributing the things that I'm updating my own brain about. Thank you guys for having these convos. Peasy says, is there a promo to join the WHOP Fiddle? No, there is no promo. However, we do offer $50 back the first month simply for leaving a review. So you can consider that a promo. And there's a kind of baked in insurance that if we ever have a losing month, then we are going to credit your account for a full month the next month. So I know like sign up promos, but there's ways that it's very valuable. Okay,
So
Drew, let's
can I
Go
just
ahead.
point out something real quick for
Yeah.
value for money on the WHOP right now? How many units is the WHOP up this like say the past 30 days? Do you know approximately? I know you're up
15.
10 or 11.
15
Say
plus.
15, right?
Yeah,
If
it's a
your
little over
unit
15.
size, if your unit size is $25 a bet, that you spent a quarter of your earnings to be in the WHOP and get that value. Like you've just tripled your investment.
We hope it continues. We hope it continues. All right, let's do
And you
handling.
never pay for a losing month. So like I
That's
don't
true.
see
You will, and
I
you'll have
literally
good
don't see
numbers
how
in a
there's not
losing. I'm
value.
very confident you'll have good numbers in a losing month, and you're just saying it's variance, but I'm not going to charge for that shit. Let's put it this way. I'll be
'Cause you're
very
a real
blunt with
G.
this. I'll be very blunt with this, Drew. I never wanted to sell picks. Never
I know
wanted
you
to
didn't.
sell picks. I was
know you
hesitant to do it. All these things. However, it is so hard. I'm working so hard in the content space, and I love what I'm doing in the content space, and I have the time to do it because the gambling stuff doesn't take as long. I'm not sitting at the poker tables for 8 hours like you are. I'm
Yeah.
staring at a screen, and I might as well be able to get on a podcast where I'm showing the screen, talking about it while I'm looking at it anyways. And blah,
Yeah,
blah,
you're
blah, we're
literally
here
working
anyways,
as
right?
you work, right?
Right, exactly. It's one in the same. So to make money from content, it has become so hard to like brand with advertisements and sell sponsorships and all that stuff. So it was the way to bring in some revenue. However, because I have an icky feeling about selling picks, I will bake in that insurance that I'm not going to sell losing picks for now. Or hopefully, I say for now. Hopefully that continues. All right. Let's talk about handling a cold streak. Sorry, I got a random call that threw me off for a second. Let's talk about handling a cold streak, and let's start this conversation with the same way it started. The first thing that you do is you evaluate, why is this cold streak happening? Am I still beating closing lines? If I am, and it's just not going your way, then whatever. We're going to talk about bankroll management within that cold streak too. There were a few times where I contextualized it like, oh, I got lucky here, and then went back and put money here. Oh, this was a win here, but generally I'm ahead of these lines, and this is my closing line value rate right now. Drew, do you want to contextualize your cold streak at all with any examples or things? And that, yes, okay, go ahead.
So upon evaluation, I went back through my results for the last 4 or 5 days. Can I preface this with like like I said, I've been kind of taking the last week or so as Christmas holidays, right? Got over the concussion. Wasn't one of the things that I did at the start of the NBA season was I quit drinking entirely for a 2-month period. And then when I came to Christmas, I was like, okay, I'm going to indulge.
I think you were
over
having
Christmas.
Bailey's coffee on the show.
Yeah, exactly. However, for the first week, I couldn't really do that, right? Because you probably shouldn't have any alcohol while your brain is trying to heal itself, right?
Here.
So I leaned into that a little harder, not badly or anything, just probably a little harder than I meant to in the second week. So starting from there, like that's mistake number 1, right? Immediately, I've changed my psyche when I'm approaching the games from where I was 2 weeks ago, right? Problem number 2, I got hot. And when I say hot, I mean hot for probably an 8-day stretch where like I think the worst day I had was a unit and a half, and the best days I had were like 10 and 11 units, and I think there was 2 or 3 of those in that streak. Like it was actually crazy. Hottest I've been sports gambling ever, for sure. Like not even a question.
It was nice to be on the sidelines and see it, and it wasn't just sports gambling, Drew. You were fucking
no. I was on fire. Like I
it
won
was
like
insane. You were sending
I
me
won like 5
place
tournaments.
at this table. I was literally I was joining Zoom calls with you. We would get in the studio for these live streams, not go live and just hang out here and throw up your poker channel, and I would watch your final tables and just be like, and we would talk about other things, but you're literally just playing a final table, and you're like,
like I won.
Oh, I'm at a second. You would be at there was one night you were at a second final table on the same night.
Yeah, like
playing multi-table, multi-tournament. I'm like, what is this guy? He's insane right now.
Yeah. I think I first placed 5 tournaments between like December 15th and the beginning of
Dude.
January.
Yeah, okay,
And
so
some of them were
yeah.
worth like, upwards. 2 of them were worth upwards of like a grand and a half.
So you think you got ahead of yourself placing too many bets in the coach?
Yes. So that, and also overconfidence. Big problem, right? When you get that hot, like you really need to focus on tempering just like some of this is just variance in the other direction. All that variance you had where you're like, oh, I missed this by 1 point, I missed this by 1 point, or I had pocket aces and the pocket kings sucked out on the final table and I got 8th place instead of 1st place, et cetera, et cetera. All of that stuff went the other way.
If we remove the few places that I got lucky, like if we remove that Celtics Thunder under, then I had a slight losing day yesterday, right? If we flip that win to a loss, and I talk about taking out the anomalies and counting them the other direction, then like that was actually a loss.
Yeah,
that was actually a losing day.
So overconfidence really got me badly in 3 specific spots where, one, I overexposed myself by probably half a unit to a full unit in a given spot, and 2, I faded the market in 2 spots like that. And there was one spot where a book released an incorrect line, and it was from a sharp book that I respected a lot. So my assumption based on that line was that, everyone's going to move to them. And that's never going to be the case. It's never going to move fast enough at all the other books. It's always going to get hammered at the book that's made the mistake. And that was a mistake that I made.
At least meet somewhere in the middle, right? It might eventually get back to that point where the sharp book originally opened it, but they're not going to stay exposed there to take such liability.
No,
quickly,
exactly.
Right. So they'll move their line, catch up with the market, and then hope that it starts to go back there.
They didn't even do that. This one was so egregious.
Just an error.
It was literally. I'll just reveal
Pinnacle
what it was.
Made the error. Definitely.
Yes, it was Pinnacle made the error, and they posted the points rebounds line for Tatum's points, rebounds, and assists line is what happened. So the whole board was at 46.5 for points, rebounds, assists, and the points rebounds line was 41.5, and Pinnacle posted 41.5 for points, rebounds, and assists. It was there for.
So you played the under at PRA everywhere else.
Yes, that's exactly what I did. Now, only 1 unit because it is a prop, but that is the most I would ever expose myself on a prop.
Right.
And it was so egregious that Pinnacle moved the line to minus 170 on the 41.5 and then closed the line and never reopened it. That was how bad it was.
They never reopened the market at all.
Never reopened the market at all.
Even
they ate the loss. They just ate the loss.
Wow.
How bad it was. Yep.
Interesting. Normally you'd see them flip it the other direction just so that they could artificially bring in money, but maybe they're like, we don't even want to open this up to a poll. Maybe they are running their simulators and they're like, high chance of this being the Polish middle. We can't risk this.
Yeah, you can't risk it. Right. And I'd love if there's someone from Pinnacle by chance listening to this and can reach out to me anonymously and tell me that this is what happened. I would like be forever grateful if you could confirm my suspicions.
Maybe me and you could talk off air about that. All right.
But yeah, just overconfidence, right? Got to watch that when you get hot, and losing confidence when you're cold too, right? Like,
has your bankroll changed? Did you reduce
significantly?
Did you? No. I mean, obviously your bankroll changed, like went up a ton, then went down. Like it's been fluctuating.
No, went up a ton and has gone back down a little bit. Like, okay, I'm not even.
My main question is, since your losing streak has started, has and I hope the answer is no. I'm going to hope the answer is no. Has your unit size decreased? Because what I'm getting at, Drew, and I'll explain the full thought before you answer it, is if you are still gaining closing line value and you do still have awareness of the errors you made, and you can reflect back and you say, I know what just happened here and why this mistake was made and understand it, right? You're generally closing ahead in other places, and maybe there was one day you went too heavy and it was an inefficient market day and you just got caught in a little bit of a trap having, 55 bets instead of 20 or 30 that day or whatever, scaled. However, if maybe you're a 5-bet person, now you have 11 one day and it was just an inefficient day and you get caught up a little bit, whatever. If you still have the high degree of confidence in the approach, the fact that you could get closing line value, the fact that your secondary metrics are still going to be properly handled, then what I hope is that your unit size does not decrease from whatever it was at peak bankroll, because I personally don't recalculate a unit size down to 1.2%. When I lose 5 units, I don't go down in my bankroll, because the game that you're playing here is you have to net plus 5 units before you lose 83 units as a collective every time you hit that reset button. So if you go 5 units, you're now playing a game with, will I go plus 10 units before I go minus 78 units? Right. So you're still, if you're still closing with value and your secondary metrics are still correct, you're still widely expected to get back to where you should be, right? If you're doing things the right way. And therefore, I'd be very hesitant to then come in and say, I'm going to reduce my bankroll. No, hold the fort. Reduce my unit size. No, hold the fort. Still bet the 1.2 from peak when you recalculated, and get back to saying my secondary metrics are okay. If your secondary metrics are incorrect and you're now closing with negative CLV at 60% of your bets, you have to then check back with yourself. You have to reevaluate your process. You have to then maybe take a day where you're picking numbers but not betting them, right? You can test things. You can back test things. People don't do that enough. People actually test things out with money. You don't have to test things out with money. Right. So use those things to your advantage, whether you're on a hot streak or a cold streak. Use the advantage to your advantage. And that's some good shit. Think that'll do it for today's show. We're going almost an hour and a half. We are here all week. I am joined by Drew Johnson, hopefully tomorrow and Wednesday. We'll see if his schedule still allows him to keep joining us. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to Ian in the back. Some words from Patrick Beverly as we say peace.
Y'all subscribe to my podcast by y'all asking all these questions. Don't forget to subscribe to the pod. And if you're a kid, listen to your parents. Listen to your parents.
Listen to your parents.
Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe.
Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the pod, man. Subscribe to the pod. Good. Those are good.